Welcome back. In this section, we will learn about Git basics. First, we will understand what it does. Then we will practice local version control. And lastly, we will connect to GitHub, where we can use commands such as push and pull to store our files no longer locally on our devices or our computers, but remotely. And we will understand how that works and how that looks later. But first, we will perhaps describe what is local version control, because version control, the word might not tell you much, but if we think in the distant past, how did we work with versioning when we made changes to files? We might have been using Word, or we could have been using a text document, and let's create a text document here, and this was maybe my great essay, and in it I had things that I wrote, headers and text, and we kept going. And then I would save this. And then instead of changing the original, I would create a copy. So I will just Control C and then Control V, and I have this, and we have a copy. But then maybe we would number it. We'd say 01, and then we would go on, or maybe based on the date. So we would have a lot of files, and text documents not so difficult, but Word documents, other kind of documents, it's not practical. They take a lot of space. So Git is the evolution. It tracks changes for us, and we just need to have one local copy, and we would later have one remotely. That if we're working with other people, or we want to have a backup in case we want to share the progress between different devices, or in case something happens to our local computer. So the first thing we will do, I will remove this. I will create a folder here. Or wait, let's wait to the folder. I think a better idea is previously in the other videos we would go, I showed you the way of the terminal. And in Windows 11 we have Windows Terminal. You can also install this on Windows 10. For Mac users, you have, I think it's called Terminal, and those others, there are other versions as well. And Linux, well, you already know what you're doing, so you know that. And in Windows Terminal, we can select, when we click here, different types of interfaces. In Windows 10, I think you have Command Prompt and PowerShell pre-installed. But when we installed Git, when we went through the setup instructions in week 1, we used Git Bash. We installed it, and I prefer it because then I can use more universal commands, Linux-based commands, and those are the ones we use mostly every day. I can, for example, not easily create a file here. I would have to introduce very complex things to you, and you might not be used to it. But it's up to you whichever you use, just so you're aware. So I'm going to go to the Git Bash, and then I can close my PowerShell. And we see if I type ls, which is listing all the directory and files of the position I am at. And if we just go back to PowerShell now here, and I do ls, we see we always start at our home directory. These things can be changed as well. And we see it's pretty much the same, just the structure changes. And if I now go back here and I would like to navigate to my desktop folder, we see that it's one of the directories listed here. I can just type cd, short for change directory, and then I can type my desktop, and then it will navigate there. And we see now the change from this symbol here to symbol/desktop, so now I'm there. And I do ls here, we see these other folders, and we also see this desktop.ini, which is hidden for us. We are not showing it to us. This is a way for Windows to track, I think, files and directories. And Mac has its own, which is called .ds ignore something. So we generally ignore that. So I could, like before, show you I could create a make directory here, and let's call it Git Sandbox. And I could have just used the graphical interface and created a new one here, new folder. But let's go with this one. And then we see it's there. I can also verify by typing ls to see that it has been created, and we see it here. Then I navigate to it, Git Sandbox. And now I'm here. And later I will open this in VS Code and have the terminal open just so we can see the differences. But first we will focus on the initials. So Git now will allow us to track local changes, and it will say versions of our code that we will use to build our applications, and we don't have to manually create copies and maybe change the name and it's very difficult also to go back to an earlier version. With this, if we make a mistake, Git will help us go back to an earlier version easier. We can also see the difference. So we will hear terminology such as a repository, and in this case, a repository is just our project folder, but it's tracked by Git. So now that I'm inside the Git sandbox, we know we have Git. I can just type Git, and we see we get all this information. And we can also use, as they suggest, Git help. Besides seeing the descriptions of what these commands do or how we set up or what work, we also see I can type Git help -a or with -g to get more information about the commands which are available. And here I'll type control C, I think. Nope, I have to type Q, just Q, and it exits that. So we have access to a lot of information when we install Git, whenever we're unsure, and of course we have the internet as well. But if I now would like to just do a command, I would like to I would see the current status of a repository, for example, type git status or any other command besides init, then we see we get an error message that says this is not a Git repository. We're not tracking anything here. So when we start out, we always start with running git init. So it initializes an empty repository at this folder, and we see it does it in a .git folder. So if I open this folder here, and now I'm actually seeing hidden files. You might not. So I think you go to view here and then show, and here we have hidden items. So you would not have seen it otherwise. But I'm gonna show it again. And we'll have this here when we need it. And now say we're creating a Python file or any really document. It can be markdown files or text documents. Let's just say I'm going to use a command called touch, and let's call it just greeting.txt, and it creates a file. So we see in the folder here, if I do, let's minimize this, give more space, do like this, and this, let's go. We can see we have the file there, and if I type ls, we see it's already there. And then I can also open it from terminal. It's good to know that you can do all this. There are these built-in commands like, first of all, I can, let's open up, let's type greeting text. And we have this kind of like a minimal editor where I can type things and say, hey, and then we see we have some commands there, and what it means, I need to type control exit I have there. If I want to, let's see, then I kind of save modified buffer, which is like save the changes. I type Y, and this is write to file, and I said press enter, and then I exit it. And now I can show the output of the file, what exists in it, by typing cat greeting, and I can tap tab because it finds the file, and we see it's hey. Or I could have just opened it here and seen it. So I just want to show you that we can work a lot from the terminal. There will be a lot of graphical interfaces that make our lives easier later, but it's good to understand the basics. And now I would like to track this file, because if I now type git status, we see that it's red. It says it's an untracked file. So I want to commit it. And what does it mean when we have two concepts we need to understand. We have a command where we use git add, and then we type the file that we want to add, greeting, and I can tap tab to autocomplete it. And what happens, you move this to something called staging. And the difference between staging and, for example, when we're committing, is that it's starting to I say, for example, other thing. It can start tracking it. It is not tracked yet. It is uncommitted. And we kind of get this description here. It says nothing added to commit, but untracked files present. Use git add to track. So they already told us what it does. So I added it now. And then we have this error, and this is a problem for another day. We need to think about this now. Then we can go to git status again and just see what happens. And now we see changes to be committed. It is tracking this file now, and it's green, but we have not committed it. And when we commit it, we save kind of like a local copy of this current version. So let's start by doing that. We say git commit, and then we add something called -m, which is short for message, and then we add these double quotation marks, and we can type something. And here we will type add greeting. I could say add greeting text. And you will come across people using different messages. They might say, for example, add with a capitalized. That's up to you. That's not the right. But one error often happens when people type added, like something has happened. What we use is something called imperative language, and what it means is it's a kind of a command form that reads kind of like this commit will add or fix something. So because we have not, for example, sent it to our remote repository, this is like local changes, and this allows us to be big teams that work on the same code base locally, and then when it goes to the remote, we don't always automatically integrate it to our our one place with the latest changes. Other people will review your code, see that it works, you have written it, you've written good code, it passes tests, etc. Anyhow, I'll press enter and we get this message. So it has done something, it has done an insertion. So I now type git status again, we see there's nothing to commit. And then we also have this on branch main. We have seen it earlier here on this output. And when you first create a repository, we have a main branch. Later you will see that this is very advanced. We're focused on Git basics, but later we can have different branches where they diverge. For example, say the main has all the production ready code, and then you as one of the developers of your team would work on a feature. For example, we work on a web app, there's a new feature, you will work on another branch which you call it feature and then a description. And say if things don't work out, you don't have to revert. You don't need to be afraid that it ruins your main production code. You can just discard it, or you can go there and test things without worrying of modifying what already works. So that's also an advanced concept, branches, but it's very powerful and we use it every day. So if we now think of the workflow, I'm just going to type something here just to get a structure. So we saw git status, there are no unchecked changes. Now let's say I open this greeting and I just add hey there, another line, and then I Control S to save. And I will close this window. Now if I type git status again, we see changes not staged for commit. We have done changes. So it has been tracking our file when we committed it the first time. It started with hey, and now we've added something new. So now we can save the new change, and we do the same thing here. We say git add and the name of the file, tab to autocomplete. And then you will sometimes see people, if they know that there are not many files, or they know, for example, there are not many subfolders and they know they're going to add all files together, they can instead type dot, and this will add everything in the current directory. So if I do this, I do git status again, we see it is staged now. We have added it. And now I can write a new commit message. I say git commit, whoops, 2 spaces, commit -m, and then the message with 2 double quotation marks, and then I would say add a new line. So you see the imperative. I was automatically going for, in my mind, for added a new line, but no, add a new line. This is not a big thing. You will follow the directions in your company or team policy. They might be more lax about this, but I'm just trying to show you the industry standard. And sometimes we will see this later. There's a readme file. I'll keep it for later when we work remotely. I'll keep it simple. So now I've committed this. Go back to git status. We see everything's good. So this is the workflow. We will edit the file, and then we will add it, and then we will commit it. So we're changing something, then I'm ready to stage new changes. I'm not doing any more changes, and then when I'm ready, I can commit it. So it's now Git will track. You will be able to compare between the 2 changes. There's a history, and we can see this if I type git log. We see this. We had the starting first for this file, add greeting.txt, add a new line. So this allows us to track the changes. Often when you create a Git repository and you will start out with, for example, we can now say, how do I start over? It's not very difficult. All I have to do is just remove this .git folder. And now It won't update directly, but let's say I'm just gonna clear, so we start over. Now we see that main parenthesis is gone, and if I type git status, it says not to git repository. So I reinitialize it, git init. And now we, if I do git status, we see we're back to this. We're not tracking any files. So that the first step is git init. Then comes the second. Often it looks differently, but we would create a file called .gitignore. So I will create it like this, .gitignore. You can create it any way you want, but this is a simpler way. And I can open this, right click it, and I can open it with anything. We just do code. I should be able to open it to text editors, but we can keep it simple. I use this nano command .gitignore. And then I'm in here. And here we can ignore files that we don't want to be seen. We don't want to track. And as you saw when we were on the desktop folder, we had this .ini folder. So I could, for example, told it to ignore a specific file by name. Maybe say I want to ignore my greeting text, or I want to ignore many files. For example, Mac has this .ps ignore file that tracks folders and files, and Windows we saw those .ini. So this will ignore all those kind of files. And for example, when we were building code, we saw in earlier videos, PyCache, .NET developers will see the build output, bin, and then obj. So I can ignore folders as well. So I could say like bin obj if I'm in a project directory, or that PyCache folder. So there's a lot of things we can ignore. You don't want to ignore your .git folder. That it defeats the purpose. So I'll type Control X and I'll save, and then I'll press enter. And now if I type git status, we see that I don't see greeting.txt anymore, but I see my .gitignore. So let's say I git add everything, and I can see git status, we see it there, and the first commit message of a repository is generally just initial commit, just to show this is where we started, and then we start creating our files. Maybe I'm gonna start creating my Python code, so I'll do touch main.py, or create it through VS Code. So you see here you'll often see some repositories. We have also a file called touch readme.md, a markdown file that kind of describes what this repository is about. We'll see it later on the remote repositories. And you see now, if I want to add this git status, you'll see now why we kind of use the lowercase for our messages. So I would add git re, and I'll do tab, and I'll write my message. Then it's easy in the message to be very specific. I'd say add readme, or for example, if I have a file in Python that has a class, we've gone through classes, then I can, when I do a git commit message, I could have said change or add some feature to the student class. It's very easy to read, to understand by the capitalization. So not very difficult. Whoops, I don't know what does that, but we have git init, we had git status, we had git add, and then the file name or a dot to add everything. And then we had our git commit -m, a short message in imperative form. And then I showed you also git log, but there are also variations of git log. For example, git log one line. Log one line, online. It's a little shorter. Or if you want to see more information, we see now 2 messages, and we're able to revert to earlier versions. We can, even if we had like 100 commits, I can go back to a very old one. We can navigate here between these, and it's not really for us right now, but right now we just want to track changes and save it and get started. But I just want to show you the very large power of Git, what it allows us to do. So that's it for this video. Until next time.